So I want to begin our message this morning much in the same way that I began my very first talk that I did here back in February of this year, and that is to celebrate our 2024 theme, Practical Tools for Spiritual Living. As we stepped into 2024, the spiritual leadership team wanted to focus on how simple it can be to recognize and utilize spiritual principle in our everyday lives. If you look up the term practical in the dictionary, you'll find this definition: of or concerned with the actual doing or use of something rather than with theory and ideas. Like many spiritual paths, the path of unity has its fair share of theories and ideas. The writings of our founders, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, are so rife with spiritual concepts and ideas that it's easy to want to spend a lifetime just getting lost in their words. But the reality is that all good theories and ideas are born from action and experience. And much in the way the Fillmores discovered their divinity through their unique experiences, so must we do the same on our own individual spiritual journeys. To provide a more focused roadmap for our Sunday messages, we took this idea of providing practical tools for spiritual living, and we framed it in the 12 powers. This is a core unity teaching discovered by Charles Fillmore and illustrated in his book, The 12 Powers of Man, almost 100 years ago, published in 1930. We each possess within us 12 distinct creative spiritual powers, and by attuning to these powers and developing them, we can create the life we want. Kathleen, you can go ahead and put up that first slide. So with 12 months in the year, we themed each month in 2024 around one of these 12 spiritual powers. Through the wisdom of 14 different speakers across 51 Sunday messages, we focused on the limitless practical tools available to us through the powers of imagination, love, wisdom, will, order, strength, understanding, life itself, power, zeal, release, and faith. The second definition of practical in the Oxford Dictionary is this: likely to succeed or be effective in real circumstances. Who here has experienced success in practicing any one of the over 50 spiritual tools that we've highlighted this year? Anyone? Does anyone have a favorite that you want to shout out? Zeal. Yeah, I already heard someone whisper it over here too. Zeal is a favorite this morning. Any others? Imagination. I love it. So if you're struggling to come up with one, it sounds like you need a review, and that's what we're here to do this morning. So I love this definition, likely to succeed, because it's so true. And that likelihood simply depends on your willingness to practice these tools in your everyday life. So as effectively as possible, I'm going to provide a brief review of the 12 powers. But I want to make clear what our goal is today, which is to determine which power or which individual spiritual tool resonates most with you as an individual, and to allow that one power to guide you into the new year. So typically my talks are very focused on one specific spiritual tool and providing specific examples of how that tool can be recognized and utilized in your human experience. This talk is very much the opposite. Think of it as a look at the greatest hits of the past year at Unity of Naples. My invitation to you as you listen this morning is to allow the focus to come through you. In her book, Adventures in Resilience, Sharon Connors says this: we can paint the life we want by focusing on, understanding, and cultivating these 12 spiritual powers. And she's not wrong, but I would add a couple words to that. I would say this: we can paint the life we want by focusing on, understanding, and cultivating any one of these 12 spiritual powers. While it is true that all of these powers are present within our divine selves, the reality is that master of any one of these traits or any one of the tools discovered within these powers will cause all other God qualities to awaken within our human experience. I truly believe that all it takes to radically transform your life is to wholeheartedly focus and unconditionally practice any one single spiritual principle, because the rest will follow. So I invite you to take a breath with me, a drink of water if you need it, as we take this journey together this morning. We begin with the power of imagination, which equips us with the spiritual tools of thought, curiosity, and creativity. Turning to this excerpt from Your God-Given Potential by Winifred Wilkinson Hausman, she says this: "In unity, there is a saying, to set it right, see it right. This is a clue to the proper use of our God-given faculty of imagination. In order to change conditions in our mind, body, and affairs, we must first transform the pictures that we are holding in mind. We have what amounts to a continuously running, moving picture show being shown on a screen in our mind. Here's where we view the world, review past events, and project future experiences. By learning to make the right use of this important faculty, and by making sure it is continuously guided and directed by the Christ or God self, we can develop an imagination that will not only serve us well, but will also provide tremendous support in developing our other God-given powers." What a perfect place to start, right? Our next spiritual power is that of love, which can be discovered through the tools of compassion, desire, forgiveness, and oneness. By far, my favorite tool to call forth love in everyday life was provided by New Thought musician Eddie Watkins Jr. When we're presented with challenges in life, we can discover new pathways by simply asking this question, and say it with me if you remember: what would love do now? This is basically the New Thought version of what would Jesus do? Jesus was the ultimate example of love, so these two phrases essentially mean the same thing. What would love do now? What we have to know and remember is that each and every one of us are capable of being love in any given situation. The challenge is in stopping to ponder that question, rather than jumping to the ego response when we feel like our boundaries are being pushed. What would love do now? From there, we dive into the spiritual power of wisdom and the tools of spiritual intelligence, insight, and clarity. Our spiritual leader and senior minister, Reverend Eileen, highlighted this through our experience of the aha moment, recognizing the presence of the Holy Spirit in times of inspiration. These moments when it seems like all the doors of opportunity are closed, and yet here is an open window or even a hammer to make a new way forward. Aha! It is that insight that we are tuning into now as we focus on the spiritual resources that will allow us to blossom and grow further in the new year. Next is the power of will, where we explore the tools of rebirth, focus, and intention. Reverend Michael Gott from Unity of Houston invited us to explore how freedom is our birthright. And on that, I want to share with you this reading from the Daily Word from December 9th of this year. I've been holding on to it as it ties so well into our overall teaching today. So the Daily Word on December 9th was freedom. I free myself each time I remember my divine identity. Knowing spiritual truth is freedom. Each time the events of daily life, schedules, obligations, material limitations, have me thinking that life is small, I renew myself in prayer and remind myself that divine life is vast and limitless. I lift myself into this realm of God and feel it fill my awareness. My mind opens and my heart expands as I feel truly free. The truth of me is I am a spiritual being, holy and eternally free. The presence and power of God is without limitation, and that presence and power is my very nature. Living from this truth puts the limits of the world in proper perspective. I affirm as often as necessary, God is freedom and I am free. Say that with me. God is freedom, and I am free. I am so grateful that this is the truth of my life. From freedom and the power of will, we move into the power of order, which includes the tools of organization, adjustment, harmony, and evolution. Order is my jam because I am obsessed with organization. Amy can attest to this. The peacefulness of a clean living space was instilled in me by my mother. Now, she always struggled to keep a clean house because she had 6 kids, so I like to think I'm carrying this torch for her. But ever since the first time I had my own place, my philosophy has always been to keep it neat and tidy so that when inspiration strikes and I want to do something specific in my space, there's nothing there to distract me. And I tell you that it makes a world of difference when I'm moving into my prayer or meditation practice each morning. You've probably heard it said that a cluttered desk indicates a cluttered mind. Now, many would argue that the mess indicates creativity. Lawrence J. Peters said, if a cluttered desk is a sign of a cluttered mind, what then is an empty desk a sign of? It's good, right? Now, I think we should land somewhere in the middle. An empty mind can be a peaceful space from which beautiful ideas come forth, but the key is not to allow it to stay empty and, like the papers on our desks, to keep our thoughts in order as they come, remembering to focus on one thing at a time. Next is the power of strength, from which we pull the tools of stability, persistence, empowerment, and wholeness. Unity Minister Reverend Margot J. Ford says this: remember that strength is not something you have, but what you are as an expression of God's divine presence. She goes on to illustrate how strength manifests itself in our lives through this short story. A little boy was trying very hard to lift a heavy stone. He couldn't lift it, and his father said to him, "Are you using all your strength?" "Yes, I am," the boy exclaimed impatiently. "No," the father replied, "you are not. You haven't asked me to help." She goes on to say that being spiritually strong doesn't mean we have to go it alone, that we don't need assistance from others or can't benefit from the upliftment we receive from those who are ready and willing to help. And I find that this is true of all of our spiritual powers. They are not what we have, but what we are. And they manifest not only through our individual selves, but through our experiences and through those we journey alongside. Always keep this in mind when you're struggling with a life situation. The solution can be as simple as asking for help or just a perspective from someone else's experience. Okay, we're halfway done. Let's take a breath together. Does anyone need a break? We're moving pretty quick, right? Does everyone have their power picked out? We can just move on if we... I'm kidding. We're going to go through them all. So next up is the power of understanding gained using the tools of truth, comprehension, and communication. Reverend Joe Hooper brought forth our greatest form of divine communication, which of course is affirmative prayer, and gave us a new way of understanding and using it by following the bingo method. Who remembers this? These are the steps to affirmative prayer. If you remember the actions, do them with me. B is begin with God. I is include yourself. Begin with God is this. God, include yourself. Name your good. Give thanks. That's the G. And then O is over and out. And we release. We release it into the action of law that only says yes when we pray. That's an easy tool to take and run with this year. Begin every day with a little bingo, a little prayer, and I promise your life will change. We then move into the power of life, where we utilize the tools of joy, presence, vitality, and flow. I'm going to pull from my own talk from August entitled Joy is Now, because this mantra that we explored together is an excellent tool to keep you focused in the new year. Repeat after me. I am here. I am now. I am enough. Recall that when we declare I am here, we acknowledge that our current circumstance is the right and perfect place for us. When we declare I am now, we acknowledge that the solution to any problem exists only in this very moment. And when we declare, I am enough, we acknowledge that everything we need lies within our very being. Next up is power itself, where we focused on the power of the spoken word, highlighting the spiritual tools of concentration, dominion, and authority. Reverend Eileen delivered an empowering talk on self-mastery and shared one of my new favorite quotes, author unknown. As we move into the new year, remember this: don't be afraid to start over again. This time, you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from experience. You might recall my struggle with learning to play the piano, which I'm still working on, and how I discovered my unwillingness to be a beginner. Where in your life are you afraid to begin again because it feels like you're starting from scratch? Well, guess what? The truth is, you're never starting from scratch. And the change we create by trying new things is a significant and essential part of discovering our life's true purpose. Here it is. Our next power is that of zeal, including the spiritual tools of enthusiasm, audacity, abundance, and devotion. You need look no further than our youth and family ministry across the lawn to see zeal in action. Amen. I was over there with Ellie just this past Friday where our director, Miss Angela, is doing some spring cleaning because, as you know, in Naples, spring cleaning happens in December because it feels like spring right now. Thank God. Some of you may have seen those little chairs that they have that sit directly on the floor. And I noticed on Friday that each one of them has one of the 12 powers stitched onto the back of them. And I had this thought where I was like, oh, I could bring those into the sanctuary and put them around and everyone could sit at them at the end of service and kind of see how they resonate with that spiritual power. And it was in that moment that I realized how little sleep I've gotten this month. So I didn't do that. We're all familiar with Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore's famous quote on zeal. And Kathleen, you can put up that second slide. Here's something you maybe haven't seen. This was sent to me recently by our co-marketing and social media director, Alicia Castillo. This is that famous quote in Charles Fillmore's own handwriting. The small text below says that it was written by Charles Fillmore in his 94th year. A man of zeal at 94. And of course, the quote is this: I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm and spring forth with a mighty faith to do the things that ought to be done by me. If you're feeling stuck in a state of complacency or lacking inspiration to take the next steps on your spiritual journey, then here you go. Zeal is your power this coming year. We have two left now as we move into the power of release. Here we utilize the tools of renunciation and elimination. This power doesn't mess around. Reverend Maria Felipe showed us how much easier it is to release when we anchor into the God quality of gratitude. Byron Katie said, gratitude is what we are without our story. So I asked that question: what story is holding you back in this moment? What untruth about yourself needs to be unraveled and held up to the light so that you can move forward with confidence in the new year? If you're struggling with negative thinking, I can tell you from firsthand experience that gratitude is the way out and will help you find beauty in all situations. And finally, we arrive at this month, the power of faith, which fittingly allows us to make the possible real by relying on the spiritual tools of perception, conviction, and expectancy. What a perfect way to end our journey as we wrapped the power of faith around the Advent season and the very essential God qualities of hope, peace, love, and joy. So Kathleen, we can put up that last slide now. These are the 12 powers and the many spiritual tools they provide. I invite you to take a breath now and really look over these words. Ask yourself, which of these words resonates with my journey right now? Not your past or what you think your future should be, but right now, this very moment, where are you? What power is shining through, or what power is asking to shine through you? If you're unsure, I'll make it easy for you. choose peace. I think if Charles Fillmore were here today, he would agree. He said these words, God does not exercise power. God is that all-present and all-quiet powerlessness from which man generates that which he calls power. Peace is that powerlessness. It is the blank slate from which all other God qualities can spring forth. It is the empty desk, so to speak, or the empty mind, the white canvas. It is cultivated through meditation, and all that means is sitting with your thoughts and being okay with them, allowing them to simply be without judging them or labeling them or holding on to them. That's where peace begins. And if you're unsure, roll with peace this coming year. So let's say you've got your power or spiritual tool in mind, you're ready to go, and you're wondering, what next? I say let us move forward with a childlike sense of discovery. A child doesn't ask, what next? A child only asks, what now? And with that said, I'd like to bring this message home with a little story. My daughter Ellie and I still frequent the public library every month, but Ellie also now brings home a new book from the Seacrest School Library every week. And one week she brought home The Rooster Who Would Not Be Quiet by Carmen Agra Didi. In the interest of time, this is a slightly abridged version, but the message ties in perfectly with our lesson today. So listen in and enjoy. Once there was a village where the streets rang with song from morning till night. Dogs bayed, mothers crooned, engines hummed, fountains warbled, and everybody sang in the shower. Everyone and everything had a song to sing. This made the village of La Paz a very noisy place. It was hard to hear. It was hard to sleep. It was hard to think, and no one knew what to do. So they hired a new mayor who passed new laws banning noises of all kinds from public and even private spaces. Before long, the noisy village of La Paz was quiet as a tomb. 7 very quiet years passed. Then one evening, a saucy rooster and his family wandered into the village and roosted in a fragrant mango tree. When the little rooster awoke the next morning, he did what roosters were born to do. He sang. As luck would have it, the mango tree grew beneath the cranky mayor's window. "You there," groused the mayor. "No singing, it's the law." "Well, that's a silly law," said the merry rooster. "Smell this sweet mango tree. How can I keep from singing?" "Then I'll chop down that stinky tree," huffed the mayor. "Will you sing then?" The plucky rooster shrugged. "I may sing a less cheerful song, but I will sing." And he did. "Still singing?" snapped the mayor. "You have no tree, remember?" "I have no tree," said the rooster, "but I have my hen and chicks. How can I keep from singing?" "Will you sing if I throw you in a cage alone?" threatened the mayor. "I may sing a lonelier song," said the stubborn rooster, "but I will sing." And he did. "Why are you singing now?" growled the mayor. "You have no hen and chicks." "No hen and chicks," the rooster sighed, "but if the sun can still shine despite this world's troubles, then how can I keep from singing?" "And if you never see the sun again?" snarled the mayor, and he ran for a blanket to cover the rooster's cage. "I may sing a darker song," the brave rooster called after him, "but I will sing." And he did. As the rooster's song echoed down the soundless streets of La Paz, it stirred an old familiar longing for a time when everyone and everything had a song to sing. The next day, the mayor tore away the blanket and pleaded, "You have no tree to roost in, no hen and chicks to comfort you, no sun to drive away the shadows. Why, oh why, are you still singing?" By this point, a quiet crowd had begun to gather in the mayor's yard. "I sing for those who dare not sing or have forgotten how," said the rooster. "If I must sing for them as well, then how can I keep from singing?" "And if I have you made into a soup," the mayor thundered, "I suppose you will still sing if you are dead." The entire village held its breath, waiting for the rooster's reply. "Dead roosters sing no songs," he said. "Ha! crowed the mayor. Sure, he had won. But a song is louder than one noisy little rooster and stronger than one bully of a mayor, said the rooster. And it will never die, so long as there is someone to sing it. And there was. Once again, La Paz was a village where the streets rang with song from morning till night. This made for a very noisy place to live. And that's just the way everyone liked it. Each one of us has a unique and inspired song to sing. And as you go through life's challenges, your ego is going to try to convince you to stop singing. It is through claiming our powers and practicing our spiritual tools that we learn how to see the good in every situation and to keep on singing. I'm asking you to adopt a singular focus as we move into 2025 because at the end of the day, all of these powers, all of these tools, all trace back to one singular place. One idea with many names. God, love, source, unity. The one power that unites us all.